You have one, Justyna. Enjoy.
Okay, so I'm Justyna. I work for DeepL. I'm also one of the coaches for Product Masterclass, so maybe some of us actually met before. When Thomas approached me about this conference and asked, would you maybe like to speak at the conference, I said, I love speaking at conferences in moderate amount, but I feel like I've spoken at a few this year and I have run out of controversial subjects to discuss. What would I speak about? And then he said, well, maybe you can tell the audience, how you develop products. This gets tricky because there's always some confidential stuff, but then we decided, okay, actually the product culture at DeepL is something very special, and I can talk about this. So this is what I proposed, but since Thomas has a way with words, this is where we are. So this talk is called Inside DeepL, a deep dive into the product culture that creates top-notch AI products. So, let's go. So first, let me say a few words about what DeepL is. In my experience, people in Germany generally know what DeepL is. I was surprised to hear at a conference we attended, at a developer conference we attended, that some German people know DeepL but don't realize it's a German company. So it is a German company, or actually it's a European company, and this is also something that's important to our mission because also as hinted in the introduction, Europe is kind of lagging behind a little bit when it comes to AI. So, it's important to us to prove that those things can be done in Europe. The company's mission is to bring down language and communication barriers. Our best known product is the DeepL Translator. This is what you see on the right. Currently, we offer 29 languages, so you can translate between any two pairs. There are some additional variants, so for English or for Portuguese, you can select variants like British English, American English, or Portuguese from Brazil or from Portugal. The free service is available everywhere. The Pro service is currently available in the EU, US, Japan, and 7 other countries. The latest one is Korea, so we quite recently had a launch in South Korea. What else? This was big news towards the end of last year. So DeepL is actually a company that has, customers and is turning profit, but we also we have investors. We have officially become a unicorn with decent funding from Silicon Valley investors. This has also made it possible for us to acquire one of the largest NVIDIA clusters in Europe. So you can only imagine, what else we can do having access to resources like that. And another thing, so the translator is the main product, but at the beginning of this year, or actually the alpha version went out at the end of last year. At the beginning of this year, we went fully public with this. There's a new product called DeepL Write. If you haven't tried it out, give it a go. Okay, so one thing, I'm going to talk about product management at DeepL and the product team. And a question that I sometimes hear also during recruiting, because we are growing, so we have to conduct a lot of interviews, and people sometimes ask me, this is a web translator, there's the input box, there's the output box, why do you need so many product people? But it's a little bit more complicated than that. This is a screenshot from our website, so there's the free translator, there's the Pro version, there's the API, so we also offer a translation API, there's the new product DeepL Write, and also there's this entire ecosystem of platforms, right? So you have apps for iPhone, for Android phones, there's a Windows app, there's an iOS app, there are browser extensions, so it's actually quite a lot. The product team is quite big, actually. A very important thing about the culture of DeepL is that this is a truly remote-first company. I have worked in hybrid setups before, even before the pandemic, but this is the first place where I can say with 100% certainty and confidence that you are never excluded because you are working from home. I used to be the only person working in my town. I'm from Poznań, Poland. Now there are 3 of us from different teams, but all the resources, all the knowledge, all the career growth is as available to me as anybody else. Actually, at this point, we do have offices, so DeepL hires in 4 countries. That's Poland, Germany, Netherlands, and the UK. There are offices, but the majority of people work from home. So even people who live in a town where there is an office, they can choose to work from home. We got some nice equipment from the company. We also have a work from abroad program, so some time a year we can spend elsewhere. But DeepL, I think as a German company, is very serious about taxes. So, it's very by the book. So we make, so basically one special thing is that water cooler conversations don't happen, right? Everything is written, it's documented, recorded. You have access to information. You are not excluded because you are physically not somewhere. We do see each other in person. So roughly once a quarter, every team will organize a reunion in one of the offices to talk to each other in person. These are never obligatory. If you, I don't know, are a single parent, whatever, you don't have to go, but the opportunity is there. If you cannot, you will join remotely. As I said, DeepL is growing. It's been growing, well, since I joined, it's had explosive growth, both in the number of customers, but also in the number of employees. So we spent a lot of time hiring. Remote hiring is quite special. When you hire people remotely, more people apply, right? Because they like this benefit of working from home, but also because people who are normally excluded geographically because there is no good company in their region, they can apply. So we are a bit spoiled, I must say. We do have a big influx of candidates, and then we can really select people who match our culture, who have experience, and who add things that we don't yet have in our pool. One more nice thing about DeepL is that the company really makes an effort to offer equal benefits in all the countries, and my personal favorite benefit is the German PTO. So you people get 30 days off a year. In Poland, it's less. So this is something that I really appreciate. And the last sentence here on the slide, I know 100% that there will come a time where I can no longer say it, but I joined DeepL almost 2 years ago, and no one has left the product team since. So this is really a nice place to work. When it comes to product development, these are the pillars of innovation at DeepL. When I show this, I'm not trying to say, the business teams don't matter or the customer-facing teams don't matter. This is not what this is about. This is about product development, and we have these 3 pillars. So we have engineering. DeepL is a company that was started by engineers and researchers. Engineering is still the largest department in the company. And on top of just the product work, the interesting thing is that DeepL actually, we do everything ourselves. So we have our own data centers. We have our own data platform. There's a lot of exciting challenges around that. Then there's the product team. We are at the product conference, so I don't have to explain to you what product management does, but the most important things, of course, make sure that what we build is what people need and what they are willing to pay for. You have to balance research and engineering. Sometimes they want to have fun and try out some new technologies. This doesn't always make sense. We help engineers and researchers focus, so we try to remove distractions. We can tell them, please blame the product that you cannot do it, focus on this one thing. And we try to balance quality, which is a very important part of our value proposition, with speed of development, right? Because this domain is moving like crazy. And the research team, so we, as I said, we do everything in-house. We train our own models. We don't rely on any external providers. So we have this team of scientists/engineers who train. So they are programmers too, right? Because you have to be able to code to train neural nets. They follow the latest research. They try their new things. This is where most of the innovation comes from. And something that I put this in the research column, but it's also at the core of everything we do. User data protection is something very important for us. So yeah, we generally don't use user data to train the models, and we make like extra special care not to leak anything. So the product team, as it's pretty big. It's almost 30 people on the product team now. It's also very diverse. So we counted some time ago. We have 14 nationalities on the team, including some remote places like Japan or Ecuador. The number of men and women is pretty much equal. Of course, it like changes a little bit with each new hire. There's one non-binary person. So it's good. It's good because we come from different backgrounds, have seen different things. And this way, you know, it's not that everybody always agrees with each other. We can learn from each other. When I joined DeepL, we had a flat structure. Of course, 30 people is too many for a single person to manage. So now we have introduced so-called tracks with group PMs and group engineering managers leading different sections of the company. There are 5 tracks at this point. When the product team meets, we usually meet in Amsterdam, because this is where the majority of our team comes from. Or maybe not majority, but if you count where people are from, this is where the biggest group is from. Also because we have quite a few people who used to work for Booking.com, which is in Amsterdam. And people have very varied experience. Some work for big companies, you know, the like biggest tech companies in the world. Some created their own startups, and this is how they learned. So again, we can combine our experience and sometimes clash. There are the sister teams that we have, product design. An interesting thing about the product designers at DeepL is that they are really product designers. They are not just, and no offense, not just UI, UX people. They really like run the research, you know. They are very scientific about this, which is very helpful. There's a new team called Customer and User Research, which centralizes some of the like big research questions. If we want to learn something about, say, our B2B customers, there's something weird happening, we can delegate it to them. And they also provide some tools, for instance, ingesting information from systems like Zendesk, where customer support work, to let us know and let us analyze easily, for instance, what customers are asking for. And there's the data science team. As I said, we also have our internal data platform. And the 2 sub-teams that are very relevant for us in product is experimentation. So they build the experimentation platform, but also advise us. They run a meeting called experimentation review, where if there's an experiment that brings very weird results, you know, you can go and present and get support from them to help you decipher what's happening, why is it happening, is something wrong with the setup, or is it the true result? And product insights, which also just helps us decipher all the data that we have access to. A very important thing, and a thing specific for DeepL, or maybe specific for the product companies that operate in the AI space, is that we have this additional important big team, which is research. There's a link in this slide to an article from a blog called Towards Data Science, which actually explains this entire thing very well. Let me read this quote. So, research teams, on the other hand, so as compared to product and engineering, attempt to solve seemingly impossible problems. They create various prototypes, often work on multiple open-ended projects that require experimentation. Customer pressures, production incidents, and business goals are not routine challenges for them. So they are very different from, you know, traditional product and engineering, yet we have to work with them to deliver something good to our customers. This article explains 3 different ways of working together, from having a kickoff meeting with research, then we go our separate ways, to actually embedding researchers on a cross-functional team. Like there are pros and cons to all of that. When we work with our research team, you know, I will not lie and I will not say there are no challenges. There are challenges. For instance, very often the research team cannot give you any timelines whatsoever. You know, they are experimenting with something and they are running 20 different research experiments, and suddenly one of them works. And sometimes nothing happens for a long time, and sometimes they come and say, here, it works, move it to production, and we are in the middle of something completely different. So we are still working on the communication and the structures and the roadmaps. It's, super important, also sometimes challenging. A very important part of the product work at DeepL is data. We are really data-driven. This is definitely the most data-driven company I have worked for. As I said, we have our own internal platform, which means we have access to all the data points, not some aggregations of it. Here are just some examples. I mostly removed the legend. If I haven't, never mind. So you can see, so we store the event data in a database called ClickHouse, and there's then Metabase is the UI for it. So the things on the left come from Metabase. The two charts are about performance, right? So you can see roughly bottom left, the response times people get from different places in the world. Not surprising given that our data centers are in Europe. The top left, this is time spent in the backend, front-end, and network latency. You can, this helps us make decisions about do we need new data centers, for instance. Bottom right, this is a user service, so a very different set of data, more qualitative. We also reach out to our users to learn something from them. Bottom right, this is some backend data shown, I think, in Grafana. And this is tracing, so looking where does the request spend time. So we have access to tons of data. We do need support analyzing this. This is why we have this customer and user research team, data analytics. But this is very eye-opening. Something that Thomas alluded to, a product story I told him, was about how DeepL Write, the new product, came to be. And one of the reasons why we decided to pursue that was that we saw in our tracking data, which, by the way, is very GDPR compliant, we saw in our tracking data that people do this thing. They translate something into English and translate it back immediately, like without reading. And the question was, what are these people doing, actually? And then we learned that they realized that if they have a poorly written text, they translate it and translate it back, it's improved, right? The models improve it. So we thought, okay, maybe this is a use case, maybe we should address this, and then the DeepL Write prototype was born, currently only available for English and German. So data can tell you a lot, and then building on top of that, we also experiment a lot. This thing on the right, this is the DeepL cookie, so you can see how many experiments you are in. There's plenty. Some of them are AA tests, so they just are there to check that the platform is running well, but a lot of them are proper experiments. I just went into one of our systems and did a quick search for currently running experiment that's easy to show on a slide, so you can see here someone is just experimenting with the header. Nothing big, but sometimes very small changes can actually bring very big results. I think I had one more story about experiments, but it will come to me. Oh, maybe it's also worth saying that this experiment that you see here, it's pretty shallow, right? In the way this is pure front-end stuff, but there are other experiments that go much deeper, that change something in the backend or change something on the research side, and we try to see, is this better for the customers or is it worse for them? And probably, like in many companies, the experimentation framework is also used or abused for gradual rollouts, canary rollouts. So, if sometimes someone wants to roll out a new feature, they don't want to roll it out fully because something may go wrong. They use the same framework and roll it out to 1% and 10%, 50%. And an interesting conversation we had with data scientists recently was that there's actually one big difference between these two use cases, because for proper experiments, if you roll it out to 1% and then to 10%, you want this to be completely random. You want to have different people in there. When you are doing gradual rollouts, if you do 1% and then 10%, you want this 1% to stay in the 10%, right? You don't want people to have something appear and disappear and then appear again. So these are the kinds of problems that we have to solve daily. Another thing, so I showed you data and experiments, but there's a, maybe not a downside, but a caveat to that. When you look at data and experiments, you can only learn things about your current customers, right? You only see the people who already know about you. So we are also, on top of just learning from data, we place big bets. I put this very famous Boston consulting group matrix on the right, which shows you, this is based on the market share that you have and the potential growth of that market. The critical thing here is that you shouldn't only focus on the so-called cash cows, which, you know, you are good there, everything is going well, but you have to look beyond. And this is what we are trying to do. So bottom left here is actually the first time that DeepL partnered with a conference. It was this year. This was the We Are Developers conference in Berlin. We had a lot of talks there. We had a booth. We talked to many people. This was a very good experience for us, and it did result in you know, more interesting candidates applying. So we might do it again. On the right, or in the middle actually, this is a pop-up from DeepL Write. So again, a new product we decided to introduce on top of translations. And at the top, you can see us experimenting with large language models, adding summarization to translations. We are very carefully looking into that. We also talk to users. We have actually shifted a bit from B2B to B2C, B2C to B2B, the other direction. In B2B, it's easier to talk to customers, right? Because one person can represent a huge group behind them. So we sometimes, we do surveys, like here, this is a screenshot from a slide. We run this PI user survey once a year. We talk to some B2B customers. We also use tools like user testing, for instance, where you can, I don't know if you have used it, but you can put an ad saying, we are looking for people who, for instance, live in India and in a household of this many people. And then the people apply, and then we can interview them, show them prototypes, see how they react to them. So this is also something that we are doing. You may have realized from my talk that a lot of things DeepL does completely from scratch on our own, like own data centers, own neural nets, but we also do rely on knowledge and experience from others. We use some frameworks. One is the Jobs to be Done framework, also mentioned in the introduction. The short, naive summary of this framework is that basically people have some jobs to be done, and they come to your product or buy your product because they want to do this job. And then if you can make it easier for them, or if you can do it for them, they will pay. This is important for us because we do think about segmentation, groups of users, but the same user, let's say the user is a professional editor, right? So the main use case, the main job they have is they write long pieces of text and then they have to perfect them. So they're going to use a lot of alternatives, for instance, to make it sound smart. But the same person, you know, in the evening can get a message from a friend, or something can pop up in the system in a language. I think something's happening with my headset. But, you know, then they just want to translate this short thing and go away. So the jobs to be done is eye-opening in the way that just segmenting your users doesn't work. Because at different times, in different situations, they come to us with a different job. And another framework that's important to us is the flywheel. This is not our flywheel. I was told we haven't published our flywheel. I can just tell you it exists. This is from HubSpot, one of the famous ones. The idea of a flywheel is that when you put some effort and energy into something, you can try to retain some of this energy, right, to make the next round faster. So this is a very good and, I would say, standard idea, where you start with strangers who become prospects, who become customers, and then become promoters, so they can attract more strangers, and, you know, it's moving faster and faster. So we are trying to use this momentum and this way of thinking, too. As I said, the product team is very diverse. People are, of course, busy, running after their own stakeholders, running their experiments, but we do try to learn from each other. We have a product huddle once every 2 weeks where the entire team meets. We have product talks where we invite the entire company to teach them about some product-related things or share information about some very interesting experiment. Latest one, for instance, was a proposal for a new segmentation from the customer and user research team. We have product discussion club, which is where we want to, so this is a meeting, a safe space where we can meet and disagree and don't yell, not yell at each other, but in a civilized way, discuss difficult subjects. The latest one was ethics, really. So are there companies that we would never want to do business with, and can we even refuse? So this was a very interesting conversation. And I already mentioned experimentation review, where we talk about interesting or hard to understand experiment results. We have access to learning resources, like internal learning platform. We managed to get the company to pay for research access, which is fun. And some budget to spend on books. An important thing is, so, as I said, the DeepL free service is available for everyone, yet we do have a large pool of paying customers, so we understand quite well why people are willing to pay. So translation quality, this is true for all of our product. Translation volume, basically when you reach certain limits, it would be nice if you paid. You can translate documents. Then the layout of the document is retained. You don't have to do it paragraph by paragraph. Web pages, data protection. So we commit to the pro users that we will never use their data for anything. We will actually never store the data. Customization, so paying customers can use a larger number of glossaries to make the translation more fit the style of communication in their company. And then, as I already mentioned, there's a lot of integrations that you can use. We tried to build cross-functional teams at DeepL. So normally a team consists of a product manager, engineering manager, product designer where relevant. This is also sometimes known as the product triad, so this exists, engineers. Data scientists are not team members, but every team has a data scientist assigned to support them. Some teams have product marketing managers. And this thing on the right that I included, this picture is from Martin Fowler's blog, but this is, the idea comes from a book called Team Topologies. This is something that was very eye-opening for us because we've been discussing at DeepL, we want to have cross-functional teams. We don't want to have this number of dependencies. You need research to do this, and you need platform to do this, and why can't the teams do things themselves? So this book explains this quite well. So you have the stream-aligned teams, which are like the self-standing product teams, who should strive to be cross-functional and do as much as they can on their own. But there's work that's too complicated. For instance, adding a new language to the translator is not something that a cross-functional team will do. This is a cooperation coming very deep into the platform and research. So for that, you need platform teams. Sometimes there are complicated subsystem teams. So a subsystem, let's say document translation, is so complicated that you don't want the stream-aligned teams to even touch it. You want to support them. Enabled teams are just teams like security who advise how to do things. And this really helped us. We tried to map which of our teams is which. And then it became clearer, how to set up cross-functional teams and also which tasks they can try to do themselves and which tasks are platform tasks. And then only when they are ready on the platform can they be exposed to the other teams. So if you haven't read this Team Topologies book, at least for us, it was very helpful. Okay, so what makes DeepL successful? I actually should say product management at DeepL successful. So we have this innovative tech created by experts. They are very, when they started, they were not thinking, can we beat, okay, maybe this was the wrong place to make a break. They were not thinking, can we beat, Google, for instance, they were thinking, like, can we do this thing well, you know? And they did this well enough to build this entire thing around. We have the commitment to quality. This is also a bit of a struggle because sometimes the research team is very perfectionist, you know. We tell them it's good enough. The people who are testing this say this is good enough, but not good enough for them. So this is also a conversation between research and product. Remote hiring lets us choose the best candidates. I said this already. This is a very wide pool of candidates. A very important thing, something that also Thomas mentioned, there's this culture of trust and respect and collaboration. So DeepL doesn't hire smart a-holes, you know. This is so refreshing. So the people I work with are very, very smart, but they are kind people, and it changes everything. So we are very willing to participate in the AI revolution, and we have the expertise to do that. We rely on data, experimentation, user research, so not just intuition. And all of us have a growth mindset. And this is my last slide. So some challenges that we are facing. So DeepL, as I mentioned, has been growing explosively. What does this mean? It means that, for instance, there are some people who are in the company since the beginning, and they have basically woken up in a completely different company. You know, the scale is completely different. Suddenly, processes are being introduced. You know, it's not a small startup anymore. And this is a challenge. This is a mindset change that we have to work with. Then we are in the AI revolution. You know, it brings so many opportunities. And we do want to participate in this, but it's also challenges because it's so much easier for even small companies to do something in AI, right, with the new developments. This is something we are very aware of. And a smaller thing that we will probably address in the coming year is that we have customers, you know, globally. Japan is an important location for us, but they are very far from our servers. So we might consider moving closer to them, but then the EU data protection laws are very important to some customers. So this is also something that we are trying to balance. And this is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justyna. Thank you very much. It was amazing. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I have a few questions here, but we don't have too much time.
Okay.
So I will ask you one question. Like, okay, so download the slides will be no problem,
yes,
right?
Of course.
We will record everything. All the talks will be recorded. You get it afterwards. And now one question for you. How do you make remote work, you know, without losing fast, spontaneous interaction? You know, like the thing you have, like the interaction in the office. Mm-hmm. How do you do that at DeepL? Okay.
So one thing is, as I mentioned, there are opportunities to meet in person, like once a quarter. That's of course not very often. There usually are reunions. I didn't say that, but once a year we have a full company event. This year we met in Dresden in September. This was awesome. This is fun, but also lightning talks, workshops, you know. But even without that, even if you are a person who, for instance, cannot leave their hometown, teams do organize like a coffee chat once a week, or there's always open Zoom chat, linked to the team Slack channel, and like wherever they need, they just jump on there even without organizing a meeting. So also people try to be approachable, right? Because this is important. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. There is a lot of more interesting questions, but we don't have too much time. Maybe we'll just, jump on a Zoom afterwards and go through the questions and then just share it with the video of your talk.
Yeah, if you don't close the Slido, I can also, when I have a moment, look at the questions and answer. That's not a problem.
Awesome. Perfect.
Okay.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Give her a warm applause.